Hi, this is Dina and Stephanie, and we're here to talk about Unit 2. So we're going to start with the first standard, which revolves around teachers and designing and developing digital age learning experiences and assessments. Um, I read the article, the K-12, the higher education article, and one of the things that stood out to me in regards to this standard for teachers is it was talking about a lot of the issues with technology and how it's changing so much. And as teachers, we need to be able to foster independent learning and deep learning. And it's going to really revolve around a new role for teachers. And that's what this article talked about. It's like a shift from us being in the front of the classroom teaching to being based on student-centered learning, where the students are making their own decisions. And to me, like, that's just a radical change. I can just see a lot of teachers having a lot of issues with that, because they're so used to the way that they've always done it. That was something that stood out to me. What about you, Stephanie?
The same thing. That article talked about how these teachers are becoming facilitators and how their job is to design the content instead of teaching it. There was one thing I did like. There was one model that had a hybrid model to where teachers were, it was teacher and digital. So there were some stations where students were on their own on a laptop or on a what is it called?
iPad? The iPad.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like an iPad.
Uh-huh.
I can't think of the name. But anyway, where they're on that station, but there's also a station where they're interacting with the teachers, the teacher-led, but it's better because, and it's more beneficial, it's more effective because it's a smaller teacher-to-student ratio because it's not the whole class. Again, so they feel it's more personal, and it is different than the digital stations, so it is still engaging for students. I did like that one, but I also read about the flipped classroom and how it is hard for teachers to let go. Me personally, as a teacher, I do have that issue as well, to where it's kind of like, are they really going to do it right? So I understand that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's move on to the second standard, which revolves around the students, those empowered learners. Do you want to talk about what you found first?
Sure. So one thing that I read that I really liked is where they're actually going on in the community to apply their concepts to real world. I like this for two reasons. One, the students gain so much. There was one example where they were cleaning up where there was an overgrowth of algae in one of the lakes, and the students were testing the water, testing the dissolved oxygen, testing the pH, the temperature, what is that's creating these algae. And regardless if students are going into the STEM field or not, it is a great experience. I do feel that STEM is wonderful for kids, regardless if that's what they want to pursue, just because there is so much into STEM. You have communication, you have problem solving, you have research, you have working with others, everything that you need to be successful in any field, business, education, communications, and they gain these experiences in public education through the STEM program. So it's giving them a purpose, not just, okay, this is what we're learning, this is how I'm going to apply it. So again, regardless if they're going to a STEM program or not, it is beneficial. And I do like that they're going into the community. So the second reason I like that is because the community also sees what they're getting. They also get a chance to train the students that will be their employees soon. So it's like, okay, there's also communication through between community and education through the school saying, okay, I'm noticing this in the students, how are you going to address this? I really like how you're doing this because XYZ is happening, so continue doing that. So it provides relevant education to students through communicating with the community, and the community gets, they get a break on the wages because I'm having to pay somebody else. And again, it's beneficial. It's a symbiotic relationship that should continue, and I think we should see more.
I love what you're saying there. I like everything that you read from your article. My article talked more about like the problems and like how they're going to fix those problems, and kind of what you talked on. It talked about like the informal learning versus the formal learning, and like how you take that informal learning, like you said, going out and like doing the ponds and checking the pH balance. I don't know much about science, but I know pH. And but like making it, where the students are getting something outside of the normal realm of their classroom. And I love that idea. And also, like, one of the other big problems they're talking about with students going into the digital age is actually advancing their digital equity and like getting them to learn like what it means to use technology properly, not just going on and finding like a great video that they like. So like they were saying that the University of Cambridge is trying to do something where they're setting up technology for students with disabilities. So those students aren't sitting at home and losing education. Like they're trying to come up with new ways to include the students and getting them to take advantage of their education and take part in everything. And I just love that. I think that sometimes we get away from that, and hopefully technology can close that gap with students. So. All right, let's move on. Teaching, learning, and assessments with coaches. So my article with that one, it talked about advancing, no, not that part. I have to find it. Oh, managing knowledge problems. So like there's so many issues with our teachers who they just don't know the technology. And that's what my article talked about. And like our technology coaches, that's their job to like close that gap. And it can be difficult when you go into a classroom and you're dealing with teachers who are like, I'm good with my little overhead projector still. They don't want to do that. We have teachers like that at my school. I've worked with them before. And so there's a lot going on in the world that I didn't even know about until I read this article. One of the things they were talking about was that Penn State University is trying to create new ways to get faculty and administrators involved with each other to come up with new systems of technology to use in the classroom. And they're giving grants and they're trying to build those bonds with leadership and faculty. And I just think that would be good as coaches, like to somehow get teachers and staff to not be afraid of technology, but to be willing to teach it, to learn it, to assess it. And I just think that that's a huge problem in what I'm seeing, because I'm trying to go into administration and I'm just seeing so much fear of technology. And so I think as these coaches go in, trying to build that relationship to help those teachers overcome that fear.
Yeah, I agree. My article also talked about, they talked about two things kind of with the coaches. One, that it's hard for them, like you said, they get a lot of kickback because it's like, oh, this is a lot or this is hard. And the truth is, a lot of it is going to digital. So it's kind of like you're having to learn it one way or the other. Just yesterday, I was at my school, and they were saying how our program that assesses teacher assessments, they're no longer, we do Invest. We would do a binder with all our artifacts, all our papers. They're not doing that anymore. It's all digital. It's all through eSchool, our grading system. So it's like it's changing to where a lot of people want to save paper. They want to go digital, so teachers are being forced to learn this. And a lot of them, the article talked about how they're integrating a really good program at one of the schools, and the school's receiving a high turnover rate because a lot of teachers are getting burnt out because it is so much to learn. And as coaches, the article does talk about them having to show the teachers how to use technology, not just to, here's, read this article, but actually how to do research and find meaningful lessons to deliver to their students through technology, how to start flipping that classroom and actually applying this technology to higher order thinking. That's one of the issues mine talked about. And one thing I did notice is that in Texas, it is a little bit harder. Not I want to say harder, but it's not a focus. Higher order thinking, it's not a focus, at least not what I've seen at my district. It's more like, let's get them to passing. It doesn't matter how much they pass as long as they do pass. Or it doesn't matter what they're learning as long as they pass. It doesn't matter how far they go into it, as long as they pass, we're good.
Yeah.
I can't say I've had a lot of training in that. They do try. So one of my ST evaluation last week, I did mention to where we are doing inquiry-based learning. It's just, as the article said, it's all given at once, and it's just overwhelming, causing teachers not to use it. Every lesson was supposed to be, or every investigation was supposed to be an ADI investigation, and mine honestly wasn't, just because it was a lot. They give you a 2-day course and say, okay, do it throughout the year, and it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So I completely understand, and as coaches, as a future administrator, this is something that we do need to focus on, maybe bringing it in baby steps. So it
Mhm.
was, as you said, a really good article to read.
Yes, definitely. Okay, here's our last standard for administrators, which is what we were just talking about, excellence in professional practice. So what did you find about that in your article?
So administrators, it was this pretty much the same thing, trying to get teachers to do this. There was one that I read about an incentive program
Mm-hmm.
where they came together and said, okay, if they did this, this is what they would give. And I did like that. I do feel incentives are good, whether they are, regardless of what they are. I do feel that incentives are good in any aspect for teachers, for students. A lot of times I do find that teachers sometimes need to be dealt with like students. If there is an issue, it shouldn't be, oh, here's a write-up. It should be, hey, what's going on? Or,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're doing really good. Keep this up. Here's a note or something, I do
Yeah.
feel that sometimes as administrators, they should be doing a little more incentives, regardless if it is monetary or just a note or just verbal. I did
Mm-hmm.
like that the article did mention that.
Yeah. Yeah, in my article, there were two things that stood out to me with the administrative part. One of the things with new technology coming in, I didn't think about this as an administrator, but there's an issue with the longevity, I can't say that word, longevity of programs that they're bringing in. And like, they have to be careful which programs they pick up because it might not last for very long. And you don't want to put all of your money into one basket and have that, like the next year, they're like, oh, that program's no good any longer. It's too old. It's only a year old, but that's just technology. It's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hadn't considered that from an administrative point of view. From a teacher point of view, I'm like, oh my goodness, so many things, they come and then they go. I just got used to it, but not from an administrator. The other point of view, the other item in the article that I liked, it was talking about like informal and formal learning with administrators and like how administrators can create relationships and partnerships with universities and online learning providers. And it made me think like our administrator created a relationship with a university where the students were able to travel down to Galveston and get in their boats and go look at the water and the ecosystems down in Galveston. And I think that as administrators, we have to learn to think outside of the box and be creative with how we're, using technology in our classrooms, but also being cognizant of the effects and like the systems that we might use and how long we can use those systems.
Yeah, I really like the idea of them taking it down to Galveston.
Yeah, the kids loved it. It was fun. Yeah, I didn't go. I might go this year. We'll see. So, okay, well, I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for watching.
Yep, thank you. See you next time.
Please leave your comments down below.